We're going to do a quick tutorial about how to render a character out, maybe for presentation purposes. And this is going to make use of render layers. Yeah, very basic. Let's start off with just seeing what happens in our common tab as it is. So the first thing we want to do is we want to go to our render options and turn off enable default light. We don't want this ticked. This is an ugly thing that destroys everything. Next, we can go to indirect lighting, and I want final gathering turned on, and let's push it up to 50, accuracy 50, and image-based lighting, and I'm going to, this is a very simple one, I'm going to just make it something like this, which is about 75%. Actually, let's make that exactly 75% light. And so now I've set up some lighting, which is this just an image-based lighting, and I need to create a camera. Alright, and I'll just use this one down here, camera 1, and I'm going to set this up right here. Now, in order to know exactly how this is going to render, I'm going to go to camera settings, resolution gate, and that gives me a perfect frame, and I know what this is going to look like. And I'm going to just start this off, straight up. I prefer to give a little bit of space in the head. It feels strange if there's a lot of space for the feet, but not much for the head. I'm trying to center this pretty well. Alright, so now I've got my camera right here. And basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to group the camera, Command G. But when I group it, I want it to be at the origin, so that the pivot point is at the 001 spot. And I'm going to call this camera group 360 because I'm going to rotate this around. Okay, and my time slider here is set to 100 frames, so I'm going to key selected here, and then I'm going to go to the end of this and I'm going to say 358. That's how much this is going to rotate. So if we look here, and I have auto key turned on. If you don't have auto key turned on, you can just key select it again when you're over there. Otherwise it won't key it. So what this is going to do is this is going to allow this to loop consistently. So let's just watch and see what it looks like. Play blasted. Alright. And you see it doesn't jump. That's why it's 358, not 360. Otherwise it would have duplicate 2 frames. Alright, looks good. Moves well. Alright, so let's just see what happens when I render this guy out. Okay, not so bad. So one thing that I kind of want to do, I have subsurface scatter turned on for this character, so I'm going to want to put a light in here for that. But I just want to give this a little bit more dynamic lighting by adding in a simple key light. So I'm just going to go to create lights, spotlight, look through selected. I'm just going to go here. I'm going to put it at a nice kind of like 45 or something. But the problem is I have a image-based lighting which has an intensity of 0.75. This light right now is intensity of 1. I'm going to make this 0.25, and I'm going to go to my shadows, and it's on, but I'm going to make it like ray trace shadows 2, so it's a little bit blurry. And I now render this out. And you'll see that light will give it just a little bit of volume. Otherwise, it was a bit flat. You can see a little bit of a shadow right here, a little bit of a shadow, just a light shadow here. And it just makes those specular highlights on the skin and on the face that much better. Alright. Now the next thing I need to do, and I can call this key light. Okay. I'm going to create another light. Spotlight. Look through selected again. And this is going to be from behind. And what this is going to do is this is going to be my backlight. Alright, and this will give the nice subsurface scattering. And this one, it's okay to keep the intensity up because it's from behind, so if there's a little bit of burning on the edges, it might be good. So let's test it out, see if we like it. So you should be able to see some subsurface scattering coming through where I didn't save the previous one. I'm going to just move it a little bit higher, just a little bit higher. And let's push, let's do this. Alright, so now we see a highlight here. It's looking better compared to before. And that gives it volume from the side and from the back, plus some nice subsurface scattering. It's also shading right here, so let's soften that shadow quite a bit. Let's go to backlight shape, shadows, and let's do 3. See how that looks. Alright, so it's definitely softening those shadows, but it is kind of jaggy, so I kind of want it even softer. Let's go 5. And shadow ray depth, or sorry, shadow rays, let's do 16 and see if that kind of cleans up that jagginess. I'm just going to render a small portion to see how that looks. Yeah, that softens that up quite nicely. And I'm just going to try and do intensity of 2 and see how this looks. Yeah, it's burned out. It's too much on the feet. Alright, well, it's burned out, but it's not that bad. Creates a bit more highlight. Let's see if it's really... I do like that extra little volume that it's giving. Let's keep it. Alright, good. So, maybe you want to save this. So, the next thing we want to do is, right now the camera is turning, but the character is not. Alright, so we have the lights here, and I kind of want to always present the lights with the best possible it's okay to turn on the lights, and we want the lights to always be in the best we want our character to have the best possible lighting at all times, no matter what. And you'll see that if I go to the behind the character, what happens is it's going to burn out because I have that backlight shining on there. I want the backlight to always be from behind. So this is not the result I want. I want the backlight to always be behind the camera and the key light to always be 45 degrees in relation to the camera. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to frame 1. I'll go to my outliner and I'm going to take my two lights and I'm going to put them into this group. So they're going to rotate with my camera. So render that out and see how that looks. So this will mean the shadows move dynamically, but that's okay. It'll show the volume of the character. So now I get to keep that nice highlight, the nice backlit subsurface scattering, and a nice 45 key light here. And then that just creates a nice volume. All right, let's just try one more time. See, like from like 45-ish view. Okay. Let's save this. So again, looks good. I have this a little bit right here. So let's go to our lights. We want key light, and let's shadow color, raise 16, backlight. Let's change it up to like 32. Let's just see if that kind of fixes this. Get rid of this kind of chunkiness. And basically the goal for a render like this is each frame should not take longer than 5 minutes to render. In this case, each frame is under a minute, so it's quite good. It's a very simple character. Yeah, that smoothed that up nicely. Yeah, it's 23 seconds for the render, so that's good. So these settings are working pretty well. I might want to update my final gather rays a little bit in the final render, but for now I think we're doing okay. Alright, so let's save this character. Now, if I want to render this out, what do I do? First off, this is what we call a beauty pass, and a beauty pass means that we render everything out and we get all the lighting, everything in just one pass, and that's great. We're going to use this, but we might want to have other passes too. So we're going to move into what we render layers right here, and I'm going to grab my character and I'm going to create a new layer, and I'm going to call this beauty. Alright, and the thing is right now it doesn't have lights, so if I render this out, it's going to render without the lights, and it's going to have the image based lighting, but it's not going to have the lights. See that? There's no highlights. Very big difference. So I need to go to my lights, and basically just the whole camera, and I need to add that to that layer. So basically the way render layers works is you can render different lighting and texture setups with each layer. Now if I'm ready to render out a beauty layer like this, I can go to my render settings, and I want to render this out as an IFF, name number extension, frame padding of 3, 1 to 100 frames, so that's good. Renderable camera is camera 1, because that's my rendering camera. Actually, I want that to be my default. So what you saw here is when it was here, it turned orange. This is called layer override. So on a layer per layer basis, we can turn certain things on or off, and we'll look at that in a second. Next, what I want to do is I want to add in a render layer right here. So I'm going to go here, insert, and I'm going to call this Impmon, and then I'm going to render layer. So it's going to be Impmon Beauty. That's the name. Impmon render layer beauty. And I'm going to give it a slash, and I'm going to say render layer. I'm going to again type in Impmon render layer. So it's going to create a folder called Impmon render, Impmon beauty, and then the file is going to be Impmon beauty 001, 002, and so forth. All right. So the name of your scene, I don't want the whole scene because Impmon render in class SS03 is too long. I just want Impmon, and then I'm going to use this variable, which is the render layer. I'll save that out. Okay. And what I'll do is, if I want to render this out, I go to rendering, and then I say batch render, and I say OK. And what you'll see here is rendering with Mentore. And what that's going to do is that's going to render out to the images folder here. I have this beauty here already. A lot of files. And you can see this is why we need to put it in folders, because I want to be able to look for that folder right here. So I'm going to just wait. It's 35% done. And this is going to render out 100 single frames that I'm going to then bring into After Effects and do some simple compositing. There we go. The first one is done. And I can open this up with Fcheck just to check it. And you see the second layer is starting to render now. And that's that frame right there. Now what we're going to do next in the next tutorial, which will be a different video, I'm going to do a layer pass, an occlusion pass, and a wireframe mesh pass.